All right. I think we're just about ready to do another session. We have a couple of great speakers for you here. Sorry, just bring Fonseca on stage here. We just talked to the big digital companies, to Google and Facebook and Twitter, Instagram and so on. And that's all very interesting, but we thought we'd also talk to some of the people who are actually using these platforms to make a difference, to get people to not only act, but also to know the facts that they're acting on. And so I'm really happy to introduce this panel. To my right is Fonseca. He has an amazing YouTube channel. He actually has several because he's multilingual. So he's here to talk about, I hope, a little bit about why he's started that channel and what he hopes to achieve with it. We have Madeleina K, aka EU Supergirl, as you might have seen on her outfit. She is a staunch Brexit, or the opposite of Brexit, activist. And then we have Karim Hallal, who is also a user of social media in a political context and has worked, amongst other things, very close together with the European Parliament on their This Time a Voting campaign, and does lots of other things as well. So thank you for being here. I think there will be some people joining us still, and we are online as well. All right, I'll start with asking you guys to tell me a little bit about what you do and how you got started. What activated you to start your online activism or your online presence? Fonseca, if you'll start to tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So again, the question.
Just a little bit about how you got started with your YouTube presence and why you decided to start your channel.
Okay, well, so my channels are called Visual Politic and Visual Politic EN. The first one is in Spanish, the second one is in English. We talk about politics, international politics and economics. And, well, we started out because basically we saw that there was a problem in the media landscape, and it's that it focuses so much on the exceptional events. So basically, I always give the same example. I say that if there is an oil cargo ship that sinks in the ocean, 5 minutes later, you have an interview with the captain of the ship, an interview with an expert on ecology, whatever, talking about the magnitude of the event. But nobody's going to tell you about what's going on with all those oil cargo ships that never sink in the ocean. And those are the actual ships that you should care about, because those are the responsibles for what you have gas when you go to the gas station. So we don't focus on the extraordinary events, but on the boring day-to-day political events. And this is how we achieve an audience of almost 2 million subscribers on English and Spanish. And, well, I don't know, is this enough answer?
What's your background? Are you a journalist by profession?
Well, no. I studied journalism, but soon I went to the other side. So I was working on elections. I was learning how to manipulate media. This is why, which is actually the most fascinating part. Actually, being a journalist is pretty boring. And actually, I hate to be, I'm not a journalist at all. I work as a YouTuber. So, and actually, I kind of, I was bred into how to manipulate journalists. So no, definitely, my background is as a political marketing consultant.
Okay, interesting. I'll go on to you, Madeleina. You've sort of, in many ways, become the symbol of the anti-Brexit movement, I feel like. Every time I see from anywhere pictures from a demonstration against Brexit or anything, you're always there, and I can understand why. I think you're our best dressed festival participant today. Can you tell me a little bit about why? How did that happen? And what was your sort of call to action?
Well, it was Brexit. That I wasn't politically active. I wasn't campaigning at all before the Brexit vote. And then when the Brexit vote came in on the 23rd of June 2016, it turned me into an activist overnight. I'd always had quite a social conscience. So I did some like environmental eco arts activism, like sort of after I finished college and before I went to uni. But I'd never been politically engaged. And to be honest with you, I'm still not that interested in party politics as they are. I think the system's broken and I don't want to be part of it. But what I can see is the threat that Brexit poses to people, to the society in the UK, and the suffering that Brexit threatens to British people. It's not something that I'm going to stand by and let happen. And it literally kind of flicked a switch overnight, and I started writing protest songs. I started drawing satirical cartoons and producing illustrations or graphics for the campaign. And got slowly more involved with different campaigning groups, integrated into the networks, the grassroots anti-Brexit networks in the UK that were forming, and just tried as hard as I could to get involved with as many things, and posting about it on social media. I didn't, initially I didn't even know what a Facebook page was. I didn't use Twitter for about a year into my campaigning. Instagram I started a year and it was the start of 2017 I started using Instagram. So they've grown quite a lot, in a short space of time. But what I was doing was sort of posting things online, or also monitoring the press coverage of our protests and seeing what was having the most impact. And it was always the really highly visual stuff, the stuff that looked great or that was funny or engaging visually in some way, especially when I put my dog in a costume. So I've got this big white German Shepherd. She looks a little bit like a wolf. So I've got a little white wolf badge. And I used to dress her up in a EU T-shirt. I used to put a T-shirt on her with EU stars on it. And everyone would go crazy. They want a photo of the dog. Everyone loves to see the dog, wants to pet the dog. And then the media were like taking photos of it. And I thought, dog's getting a lot of attention. How do I get that much attention? And so I turned my campaigning into something very highly visual, because I think that's the easiest way to communicate a message. A picture tells 1,000 words. So a visual image can communicate a huge amount about a campaign or a message or a political belief. But it's also about creating an identity about what it means to be European, something that's positive, aspirational, and, attractive. Like, I'm basically trying to make Stop Brexit look sexier than Nigel Farage and, a bucket full of dead fish and a cigar, which I don't think's that hard, to be honest.
True. Thank you so much. Karim, could you tell us a little bit about how you got started and how you're working with social media today?
Yes. Basically everything started when I did my Schumann trainship in the parliament. I started there working specifically on Brexit, indeed. And when I arrived there, I'm coming from Spain, I realized how many myths we have about the European Parliament or the European Union in general. So I decided to start a YouTube channel in order to try to explain in the most neutral way what the hell is going on in the Parliament. What's a daily life there in the EP. And there everything started, and what I'm trying to do is basically, I've done, for example, interviews to different MEPs from all the ideological spectrum, so everyone can feel related to some of them, and also to a vice president or the spokesperson of the parliament, for example. And all the kind of things that I'm trying to do is to explain what some directives that are getting approved there, like, for example, what's happening with the plastics. So every time I'm trying to make a video, the focus that I'm trying to get is, will my friends of my hometown in Spain, I'm coming from the south of Spain, will they like the video? So I'm trying to go one step back every time I'm trying to explain what's going on with the plastics, for example, or how the European Parliament works as such. And that's what I'm doing now, also on Instagram, and that's it.
Thank you so much. I asked Madeleina when she came in. We were talking about what we were going to talk about, and I said I was wondering why you didn't just become a politician. And you told me that you've been asked that question before. What's the answer to that?
Well, in the United Kingdom, it's now likely that we're going to be participating. In fact, we are going to be participating in the EU elections. Hooray! This is great news. And because of that, I get a lot of people will tweet me or message me on Facebook or something to say, "Will you stand as an MEP in the elections?" Particularly, people are circulating an email about the Independent Group, which is the new party that's been set up in the UK with the MPs that have fractured from the Conservative and Labour. They now want MEPs to stand for them in the elections. Now, the thing that I always respond to them is, I have an influence outside of the political system, a system that I believe is broken. I have a voice and I have an impact. Why would I sacrifice that, jeopardize that, to be part of a system that I believe is fundamentally not working? The other thing is, there's a lot of very passionate pro-European people that could do the job as an MEP or an MP extremely well, who don't have any influence from outside. And I think that the standing in the elections would be an opportunity for them that I wouldn't want to take myself. Because also my style is not conventional, and I'm not the best kind of person in meetings and doing paperwork and reading lots of stuff. I have a very creative approach. I write protest songs that I perform at events. I create, images and cartoons and children's books about European issues. You can't do that if you're preoccupied with, parliamentary system and the way that parties function. And the other issue is that what I'm doing at the moment is focusing on Brexit and promoting Europe. Whereas if you're an MP or an MEP and you're part of a party, you've got to deal with so many other issues. Brexit's a cross-party issue, and that's why we need cross-party influencers to have the greatest impact on ultimately trying to stop it.
So may I ask you, just out of curiosity, just in order to understand you better, you say that the political system is broken,
yeah.
But then again, you are big time standing for European Union, which at the end of the day is nothing but a political system. So can you explain that?
Well, I mean, the system that I think is really broken is the UK politics, because we don't even have proportional representation. So when people ask me if I'd stand as an MP, so a member of UK Parliament, I'm just like, no, because it's fundamentally undemocratic, the way that we elect.
What do you mean with the proportionate representation?
So
you have a unipersonal electoral system, right? That's what you don't like, or?
No, we don't have proportional representation. We have first past the post. What that means, obviously with proportional representation, if you achieve a certain number of votes across the continent, then you'll have a representative in the parliament. Yesterday, I was campaigning with a man from Dusseldorf that's standing for a small party called Neue Liberal, and if he gets 180,000 votes, he will be in the parliament. In the UK, it doesn't work like that. Even if UKIP or the Green Party have 7% of the vote, they won't have 7% of the representatives in Parliament, because we have a first past the post system.
Sure, but in every electoral system you have the same. Even in the European electoral system.
No, because the European electoral system's proportional representation, so it's actually more democratic.
Yeah, but it's never going to be 100. There is virtually theoretically it's impossible
Yeah.
to have full proportion.
There's
There's always
always-
like a minimum percentage that you have to reach.
I
in
think
order
it's a
to
very
make
fascinating
political group.
discussion.
Okay,
but,
okay, yeah,
but-
sure.
And I think that we should definitely have it. But I wanted to get back to the influencer thing.
Okay, sorry.
That's
No,
okay.
sorry.
But I think
It
it
was
is,
just
it is
nerd
super
too.
interesting, and this is why you probably all taken to do what you do, because you're interested in these topics. And
Maybe I can tie
yeah,
that
sure.
in then. So basically, what I think is broken about the system is that it's failing to communicate and engage its citizens, right? The politicians from
You mean the European or the
Both.
UK?
Both.
Okay.
There's a huge amount of apathy and lack of engagement with politics and political issues and legislation that's been passed. So the role of the influencer is to try and communicate the work that's being done by the European Parliament or by UK or the issues with UK Parliament, and communicate that with the average person and tell them it's so important that you turn up to vote and you turn up to protests that you care about, issues that you care about, and speak about them, so that the politicians hear you and respond to that.
I think it's actually quite interesting, because when we first heard from you, you said, I asked, are you a journalist? And you said, no, not really. You were sort of on one side and on the other side, but your YouTube channel is super informative. Like it's a place you could go for your information. You go really into depth on the topic you work on.
It's more
Why
than
did you not go into journalism, sort of classic journalism? Because it seems like you're both talking about broken systems, and you talked about a broken system in journalism in a way, or sort of the disproportionate way that we focus on news.
I mean, first of all, I wouldn't say visual politics is information. I would say it's analysis. It's
Yeah,
political
okay.
analysis.
Yeah, true,
It's
yeah.
like, I don't know, information would be the news.
Yeah.
This happened somewhere, wherever. Visual politics is we take those news and we make a collage with the news and we show you there is a trend. So, for instance, I don't know, one of the latest pieces we made about the European Union, for instance, with the China investing heavily on European startups in order to maybe they might or might not want to steal the military technology in Europe. So we give you different, okay, this is something that happened in US, this is something that happened in Germany, this is something that happened in France, and can you see there is a trend? This might or might not be happening, but this is our analysis. So that's kind of the kind of thing we do. That's why I wouldn't consider myself a journalist. And I'm not saying the whole media landscape is broken. I wouldn't be as bold as that. I think it's necessary that we cover the extraordinary events. This has to happen. And I think we are not a substitute for normal media. We are a complement for normal media, and I think it's a complement that was heavily needed. But I wouldn't say that the system is broken.
Okay. Karim, I would be interested to hear from you, because you work quite closely with the European Parliament, for example. Why did you choose to sort of use the social media platforms rather than sort of start running a political campaign?
Okay. I think social media, it's specifically YouTube or Instagram, they are both good ways to try to reach people with an information that probably they are not going to receive. I mean, it's not common to receive political information through Instagram, through a post, or through a video in YouTube. And what I mean by politics is like you are not. I mean, I'm not talking about the parties. Of course, the parties, they are already doing this through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all social media. But I think that you have good tools in this media to reach the specific target that you want. And also, I think that the format, for example, that Instagram gives you of 1 minute of a video, so if you want to attract people in 1 minute, you really have to do it really well or you are done. So I think also the format that the platforms are giving you are perfect, at least for the aim that I'm looking for.
Interesting. We just had the big tech companies up on stage, and I think that they were very proud of was sort of giving everyone the opportunity to be heard. And obviously, you've all three been quite successful in being heard and being seen. What is your approach to this? Because I talked a little bit about it with both Facebook and Twitter, Instagram maybe as well. Your audiences, is this mostly people who completely agree with you, or agree with you, or sort of already a bit into sort of politics nerds? Are you trying to reach beyond the people who are sort of within your own chamber? We called it. They mentioned itself this idea of echo chambers. Madeleina, are you sort of reinforcing the anti-Brexit people, or are you sort of focused on bringing people over?
Both, absolutely both. I mean, you say reinforcing the echo chamber. It's a bit of a negative slant to that. I would consider it about building and bolstering a community. So obviously you start out with a small following, and then you grow it, and you bring more people in, and you inspire more people, and you give other people motivation to take their own actions, and communicate to them, events like this or things that I'm doing to communicate what's going on, almost in a journalistic reporter kind of format. But at the end of the day, in a political campaign, you are also trying to change people's minds that disagree with you, or at least engage them in a conversation and let them, know your views. I am very keen always to talk to the Brexiteers, to the yellow vests that protest outside Parliament, or even there's some alt-right YouTube vloggers like Sargon of Akkad that like to interview me. And I'm very happy to have a conversation with them, because I think that's super important for democracy, to listen to other people's views, to try and find some common ground, try and find constructive ways forward, but also to show them that, even if you don't respect their political views, you respect them as people. I think the style that I take is non-confrontational, but it's also quite provocative, using humor and creativity, and that has quite a traction outside the echo chamber. For example, I've just put out a music video on my Twitter. It's a song that I've written, and I managed to somehow get the drummer from Blur and the bass player from Pink Floyd to play on my record, and then we had a music video made for it with me doing all my costumes, all of this stuff, and there's 3 in the studio, and it's now got 220,000 views on Twitter, and it's basically mostly trolls. It got retweeted by so many Brexiteers, and they were all saying things like, this makes me want a hard Brexit now. But at the end of the day, they shared the content, so I wasn't bothered. And the Daily Express, which is one of these tabloid rags in the UK, like right-wing tabloid rags, wrote an article about it a couple of days ago, saying it was the song that was turning Remainers into Leavers. But it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it gets the message outside of the echo chamber. It has an impact. It has traction. So yeah, definitely that's the approach.
Cool. Fonseca, your audience, are you very because in your analysis, are you trying to provoke people a little bit too? So, are you trying to challenge your audience? Are you sort of speaking to the converted a little bit as well, the people who are already engaged in these topics? Because you mentioned in the beginning, sort of talking about the topics that really matter and are not covered as much as you would want in sort of traditional media.
You mean challenge? Definitely we are not an ideological channel.
No.
To put it that way. Of course we have our editorial line, but first of all, everything has to be fact-based. Yeah. So it's not the first time that even we change our viewpoint on something. And most of our videos, we start with a hypothesis, and during the writing of the script, we find more and more information, and it's like at the end of the day, we have a totally different conclusion than the point where we depart from. So we don't try to be ideological. That's why we have audience from, I would say, both sides of the political spectrum. Of course, probably there are certain people that would never like our channel, because I would say that, to me, I would differentiate the political spectrum in two sides. Those who are identitarians and they care more about the rights of the Americans, or the rights of the women, or the rights of the worker, the working class. Those are identitarian movements. And then there's this other movement, which would be the universalist, that can be right or left wing. So the universalists are people who they stand for some value, right? Some universal value. It's like a kind of a Kantian thing. The principio categórico universal, the universal categorical principle. So they stand, So we could say the universal/Kantian people who stand for some value. That you can agree or disagree with them, with their idea of justice or freedom, but it's something that's meant to appeal to everybody, regardless of their background, race, whatever. So I would say in this regard that we are kind of a universalist channel. So therefore, people who are pretty much, but still those identitarians, sometimes they like to watch our channel and to get their views challenged. But actually, I would say that what we try to do is, all of the guys who make the channel, we are, in the Spanish team, we are 3 people, and then there is another partner, Simon Whistler, who does the English channel. The 4 of us, we love politics. We just love politics. It's like, I remember when we started the channel, my partners, they were in Fiji in a cooperation project, and we were having Skype conversations every month because we were really good friends, and they wouldn't tell me about, hey, in Fiji the food is amazing or the beaches are amazing. No, we just didn't care about that. Like, we were like, oh, and who's the government in Fiji? And how does that work? Is their currency stable or not? And I'm the person who goes now to Netherlands, and I really don't care about the channels or anything. No, I go to a supermarket to compare the prices with the prices in Spain or in Czech Republic, where I live. I need to know what are the political debates, the economical system. Like, we are really geeks of politics. So part of our goal is, it's like when you have a friend who is a really fan of Star Wars or comic books or something, and he shows you that. And he shows you his hobby, his passion with so much... he's so thrilled about it that at the end of the day you say, holy shit, maybe I should care a little bit more about this, because you seem to be so passionate about it. So our point is, we think politics are cool. We're going to make it so fascinating for you that you're going to love it. You're going to have fun with that.
Then I'll ask you the same as I asked Madeleina. Why not politics? Why are you not focusing on running for office, or where you'll actually be in the middle of it, and doing YouTube instead? I think it's great, but but it's interesting for someone who's so engaged in politics. Why didn't you choose to go that way?
I mean, first of all, I don't see myself into politics. Like, I think the most important thing in life, this is like a piece of advice that you can get. The most important thing in life is not knowing your purpose, your motivation. No, the most important thing in life is knowing your market price. Know what you're good for, what you give, and if you know what you give to people, you can know what you can get from them. So you have to know what you're good at. I'm not a especially charismatic person. I'm not good at charming people with something. So I couldn't see myself really running for elections. I can see myself being the person behind the politician. This is why I loved to write speeches for politicians. So, I mean, it's fascinating. Like, participating in an election is one of the most beautiful things you can do. But no, I'm not a big fan, and I like creating things. And I've been always like, when I was 8 years old, I was drawing comic books, right? And then I started making short movies. Like, movies, communication's been always my life. And then I discovered politics. So this is like a way of merging those two things. And it's so fascinating. Like, it's my job, but it's also my passion. So...
Do you do your own the thumbnails on YouTube? Is that you that draw them?
The design, yes.
Oh, that's cool. They're really good.
Thank you so very much.
Sure.
We spent every thumbnail when you design, like, for YouTube, it's very important. And if any of you guys is running the YouTube channel for a political party, very important, the thumbnails. Take care of the thumbnails. We spend every time we make a thumbnail, and it's like three thumbnails a week, we discuss for 2 hours who is going to appear on the thumbnail, with which expression, how is the title going to be, and then I spend other extra 2 hours making sure that the colors are right, that everything. So yeah, thank you so very much. I'm so flattered. Karim,
I'm gonna come back to that, because I think a word you've both said several times is visual. So we'll come back to that. But first,
Can
Karim.
I just tag on to that? Is that I have a special ability to appear as the thumbnail, like the thumbnail for
I've noticed.
political articles.
Exactly. Yeah, you really do. I just want to round up this talk about the sort of echo chambers and sort of preaching through the converted. Karim, how do you work with not ending up in that situation where you're telling people who are definitely going to vote that they should vote in the next election? It's difficult, right? With something that so many people just don't know enough about, something like the European elections, to reach beyond preaching just to the converted. What do you do to try to not fall into that?
Well, I think that's something that you have as like naturally. I'm coming from a background in which people, they are not probably pro-European. That doesn't mean that they are against the EU, but maybe they are abstainers. They're not going to vote. So my closest group of friends, I would say that if I would have done like all the YouTube channel and the Instagram videos, they would never think about the EU or about voting. So I think this is something that is coming naturally with me. But beyond that, when you go to some events about the European Union, especially in Brussels, I think sometimes I'm missing a bit of criticism in a constructive way. I think that's the bad point. For example, as I was saying previously, every time I'm making a video, I'm having the opinion of my closest friends, the ones that are like, well, I know something about the EU, but maybe I'm not voting because I don't feel that close to me. So every time I'm trying to get their opinion on that. And I think once you've done this, you are understanding that you have to go one step back in order to get the idea, to make them to connect with the EU. For example, there are some videos that I've seen only saying good things, like in 1 minute saying all the good things about the EU, and they are true, and it's okay, the video, but that video, personally speaking, I think that's not going to reach people that don't feel so close to the European Union. So I think you have to have a mix, a 50-50. So say why it's important to vote for the EU, say what the EU is doing for you, and also say what do we need to improve. Because if we don't say what we need to improve, then people are going to be like, okay, the ones that are already engaged, they are going to vote anyways. Yeah. And the ones that are not going to vote are like, if everything is okay, and I don't think close the EU, why should I vote? So I'm trying to get always the opinion of people that I know they are not pro-European.
Yeah. Fonseca?
I don't know exactly again what's the question, but he was talking about voting in the EU elections, and could you let me make a little experiment?
Sure.
Okay. I'm gonna make a question. Okay, the first in giving me the right answer, it goes for you guys here and also for the audience. I'm gonna buy him a dinner tonight. Okay, so there is one political party that is in the parliament, one of the big ones, that on their political manifesto they say that they want for next elections to have presidential elections, to choose the president of the chamber of the commission. Who is that political party that has this exact proposal on their manifesto? It's one of the big ones, and it's one of the main contenders. So the first one, in giving me the right answer, I buy him a dinner. We have 30 seconds.
I'm sorry, are you speaking about a political family or a political party?
Party.
Well, EPP is the family, that's the problem.
So it's a political party who wants to have direct elections for the commission president.
Okay, okay. We have a winner. Please stand up.
The EPP.
It's not a political
Okay, well, a political family.
I asked you, Hans. It's the biggest mainstream political family.
Well,
Sorry,
you're no, please. Sorry. Say it.
No, in all honesty, I'm happy you passed the microphone because I want to pose a question. So I wasn't claiming the space here by suggesting the right answer, but I'm gonna come back from my dinner. I want to challenge you. Based on what I've heard here so far, you campaign on values. You present the value of the European Union, the value of being politically engaged or informed or care about politics, and you're trying to promote the European Union at large and the elections as a way to express your voice and have a voice. I have an issue. I come from a very, very small startup party. It's called Volt. and I'm very challenged because when I have these conversations with my colleagues, how we can provide solutions. What do people care for? Because majority of us, 80% of us, doesn't have a political background and are not really. We stepped our game also. Brexit was a catalyst for us to form and shape ourselves and mobilize ourselves and organize ourselves to form this movement. But what is really difficult for us to really not only wild guess, but feel is what really people want. When you ask people, they say, I want a better job. I want a higher paid job. I want more jobs. I want
Can
more
we
money
get
for
a quick
Erasmus.
question?
Yes, so my question is, people give you these very general answers, but what do they really want? What do they really care for? Because you meet maybe different fraction of society and different fraction of people because you live in Spain, you live in Czech Republic, and you still live in the UK.
Can I ask you what? Can you
Yes,
just tell me
so my
what's your question
question
to the
is-
panel? Thank you.
What do really people care for? What would you like to see changing in the next legislative period? In the next parliament, in the European Parliament, and some solution, a small one, but a concrete one, not based on value, but based on an example.
Thank you.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
it's an interesting
Well,
question to ask to the
First of all,
influence-
she won the dinner. She was the only one
That's true.
who knew the
That's
answer.
true.
The point that I wanted to make is that nobody here has ever read one of the political manifestos of the political parties, even though you are trying to convince people to vote. But except by this woman, who, by the way, is running for one political party. But okay, you did your homework, so good. What do people want? Well, first of all, that's your job to figure out, not our job. Our job is just to create media that people enjoy. You are the one who has to create a political product because you are the politician. It's like if Steve Jobs or the guy from Apple would come to me and tell me, hey, what kind of mobile phone would people want? I'm not... dude, that's your job, so sorry. But you will have to figure it out by yourself. There is something called big data, there is something called surveys, and there is something called backbone and ideology. So probably you should concentrate on that when you are making your political manifesto.
Anyway. Madeleina.
Conversely to what you were saying, in the UK, regarding Brexit, when you ask people, the Brexit voters what they want, they say things like sovereignty, and they want control of the borders, and they want democracy, and these kind of very big, broad kind of values. But quite often when you try to pin them down to say, well, what does sovereignty mean to you? They can't actually give you an answer. And I think somehow these words have just become rhetoric to stand up for some kind of ideology or some kind of identity that's very confused. I mean, like at the last Brexit march, I went along and I was, accosted by a load of guys in yellow vests with Trump masks and MAGA caps. Like, they're kind of, taking on a French movement and then an American movement to make some statement about what they think the future of the UK should be. it's very strange. And the thing with Brexit is that we know that it's going to cost jobs. We know that it's going to damage the economy 2 to 8%. We know that it's, all of the economic impact assessments are saying that it's going to be bad. So people that are advocating Brexit and promoting Brexit aren't doing it because they want a better quality of life. A lot of the Brexiteers will say it's a price worth paying for democracy, or a price worth paying for sovereignty, even though when you actually look into it, Brexit means less sovereignty for the UK and less power over our laws and legislation.
Can I ask Karim? There's between Madeleina obviously has a clear political project. It's no Brexit. Fonseca also said that they're not an ideological channel as such. You're also quite neutral in your approach, political approach to your influencing. Is that a conscious choice that you're not, because you're not telling people to vote for Volt or for EPP or S&D? Why did you make that choice?
Well, what I learned at home is that first you need is to think. So I'm just providing the information for people to make their decision. That's what I think is worth for a channel. The question that I have many times is people watch my videos, and then when I meet that people, they are like, hey, I've seen like many videos of you, but I still don't know who are you voting. And I was like, yes, that's the point. So you don't have to think when you're watching some political speech in some way. I can be considered like giving those in my YouTube videos, but you have to be thinking, okay, he's giving me the information, so now I can make a decision. Now he's giving me also the sources, so it's not like people have to trust me 100%. It's like, here is like a bit flame. You can take the whole fire if you want with you. Here you have the sources. So I'm just trying to make that flame to start in the people. So you are not going to be technical about the European Union or about plastics or about climate change, but you are going to have like an initial motivation to be like, oh wow, I didn't know that. So now I have a motivation to look more for this. That's what I'm trying to do. So that's why I'm consciously neutral. I have my ideology, have my opinion, but I'm trying to give just the information. I think it's not on me to say people what should they do.
I'll let you give you a short comment, and then I'm going to ask you a question to round up, because I know that you have to be in other places. But
I think neutrality is a utopia. You cannot be neutral. You can say, I don't have an agenda, and I don't want to make everything, all my videos, so people would end up voting this or voting that. But you can't be neutral. What you can be is first honest with yourself, and second, critical. I remember our first rule when I was working in political consultancy, and what I said always to my candidates, it was, don't believe your own lies. You know that, okay, you are not lying, but kind of putting some polisher on the truth, right? Don't believe it yourself, because then you're fucked. One problem, for instance, yes, Margaret is right. Madeleine is right. A lot of people, Brexiters, they don't know what they are voting for, but 90% of the people who are against Brexit and they are so much in favor of European Union, I'm telling you, I would give them 50 euros per one of the... if they can give me just 3 reasons, real and precise, on why do they like European Union, I will give them 50 euros per reason. We can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the knowledge and understanding of the European Union before the Brexit vote...
Why are you in favor of European Union? 3 reasons.
Why am I?
Yeah.
I've actually got a poster in my bag with 24 reasons to remain on it. This is literally what I try and do with my campaign, is to communicate to Remainers as well as Brexiteers everything that the European Union does to benefit their lives. So things from, the peace that it has brought to our continent, to things like animal rights, the European pet passport, things like,
This is not... contingent to European Union, like animal rights can be passed on any other parliament. There are many other countries that has animal rights and they are not in European Union.
Yeah, but European legislation is adopted into national legislation. And the thing about the passports is, of course, that's a European-wide initiative that allows...
Do you have the same thing with the passports in UK? Like
If
UK is never
Brexit,
been.
if Brexit happens, the pet passport scheme gets scrapped, and any animals that are taken over the border have to go through quarantine.
I think we're gonna start to wrap up. I would like to ask just to finish up. You guys have sort of very specific right now. At least Karim is working very hard on getting people to vote in these elections. Madeleina, you're working very hard to avoid Brexit. I'd like to ask what you guys are going to do on the other side of that, whether Brexit happens or not. There'll hopefully be a decision someday. And then I'd like to ask you a bit when we get to that about what your plans are for the future and how you want to develop your platform. But I'll start over here with Karim. What's next for you when in a month and a half the elections are over? What will your focus be after that?
Well, I think we have topics for the EU for quite long, first starting with Brexit,
Hopefully.
and then with the new parliament, and we'll see how everything is going on. Also, maybe this is a spoiler, but I was thinking about talking about national politics, so from Spain, I mean, but we'll see that. Anyways, I think you always have like big topics that are not only related to the EU or to national scene, but to the international probably. If you talk about climate change, it's something that is going to be there for many, many years. Or trying to relate hot topics like migration is going to be another issue that is going to be with us for many, many years, and you can deal with that from the EU level or from the national level. And when I was saying about when I was saying about being neutral, is that I'm trying to be 50-50. So if I'm saying something about the EU, I'm not going to define myself as pro-European, and I'm not going to define myself as anti-European. And that's what I am. I mean, that's the honest part. I'm not, because I strongly believe, I'm going to be short, I promise. I strongly believe that for support the EU as a good project, independently on the reasons that you have, it's not mandatory for you to have a big flag or to always say good things about the EU. I think you can live your European identity in the way you feel that. And when I'm talking, for example, for many videos, I use the EPRS data. That's something objective. So I'm trying to be neutral in that way. I'm trying to use sources that I know they are reliable and that I know that can draw the attention of the people when they are watching the videos. That's what I mean when I'm trying to be neutral. I'm not trying to be like a sympathetic face just and following me. It's not that. It's like, here you have some info. If you are more on, I hate the EU, go for that. You can also use arguments from the European Parliament to go against the European Union. Or you can do the other way.
Thank you, Karim.
I like that.
Madeleina, what is EU Supergirl going to do after Brexit?
Is Brexit ever going to be over, though? The never-ending Brexit crisis in the UK has now been extended to the 31st of October.
We had Barnier here last night, and he said, let's see.
Will it be over by then? Who knows? I mean, the thing is, European democracy is an ongoing process. It's not a fixed event. It's not happening on, it doesn't end with the elections, and the conversation about Brexit and the EU in the UK is not going to end with Brexit. And what I've tried to do with my campaign is not to focus solely on the impact of Brexit on the UK. I've tried to focus on Europe and promoting Europe within the UK. And whatever happens with Brexit, if Brexit goes ahead, I will be leading a campaign to rejoin. If Brexit doesn't go ahead, which I hope it doesn't, there is still a huge amount of work to do in the UK to change people's perceptions and understanding of the European Union, and also to fight populism in other European countries. I think there's a role for EU Supergirl to keep fighting for Europe for a while yet.
Please do. Fonseca, your YouTube channel. What are the channels? What is the goal for the future? Are you going to do like Oprah and make your own network someday, or what is the big dreams for the coming years?
I don't know if we will ever have our own network. That'll be nice. I wouldn't say no to that. No, I mean, so far we're going to keep growing. We're going to keep launching new products. I can't, unfortunately, talk about all of them because we're about to launch a couple of things in a couple of months, and I hope it's going to be huge Donald Trump would say, and
Cool.
keep making videos and.
We'll be following. Thank you so much. You guys are staying for another few days, so I hope you'll get to meet everyone here. I would encourage everyone to go and follow these guys on their platforms. Everyone following online as well. Thank you so much for taking part. That's it. Thank you.
you.
Please don't try to sell me your vault things.